Our next conversation is on disability inclusion in this country. Is it a reality? Is it online to becoming a reality, particularly in education institutions? Haya Dennis is the chairman of the University of Nairobi Students with Disability Association. He is also the interim chair of the Kenya Students with Disability Association. Happy New Year, Dennis.
Happy New Year.
Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation.
I'm grateful, thank you.
How's it being in the hot seat of the Situation Room the first week? We're back this week and you're here.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And I will also not spare the Situation Room.
You'll not spare it. You'll light a fire.
Absolutely.
Comrade tunakusikia.
City.
Yes.
Why don't you welcome Haya with the day's proverb?
Yes, let me welcome Brother Comrade here with today's proverb.
And listen to the proverb. It's in Kiswahili. We want you to translate it to English and then give us your interpretation of it.
Asiyekosa hayupo.
Asiyekosa hayupo. Haya, Dennis. Say that in English.
Asiyekosa hayupo. That whoever doesn't miss, he is not in the picture. He is not present.
That's a direct translation and it's good.
Kukosa here now has gone into miss.
Yes, has gone into miss. Which is very...
Umelenga shabaha umekosa.
Ndio hivyo, lakini wajua pia it's synonymous with to make a mistake. Because when you miss something,
missed the mark.
Yes.
Mistake.
Most probably it's like it's a deliberate miss. So when you are making a deliberate miss, then we do not count your presence as very important.
Ah, that's a good one. Introduce us to your two associations, Bwana. You're a big man. Start with the national one. The acting chair of the
Kenya Students with Disability Association.
What's that?
Actually, you just forgot the aspiring UN President 2024-2025.
We didn't forget. We didn't know.
Okay.
But now that you've told us, you can also tell us.
You'll also tell us about it. So start with the national one. Kenya Student with Disability Association.
Now in Kenya, there are very many institutions that contain students. And these very institutions contain students with disability. So then I represent them in a caucus that it's an umbrella for all the students with disability in various institutions in Kenya. Mostly my focus in higher learning institutions because there's where a lot of challenges in terms of accessibility, in terms of inclusivity arises. So Kenya Students with Disability Association is a caucus that umbrella all the students with disability in various institutions in Kenya, not only University of Nairobi, in JKUAT, in Kisumu National Polytechnic, Mombasa Polytechnic, I mean all of them, higher learning institutions now. Yeah.
In UON?
So in UON, that's where I started. Of course, I was elected in 2022, 21st May, as the chair for University of Nairobi Students with Disability Association. So as any other institution, University of Nairobi has a disability department called the Disability Inclusion Office, our liaison office. So we decided to make the students with disability have a representation in a very structured and orderly manner. So with that, there was a formation of that association as well, and as at now, I'm the representative as a chair. Absolutely.
Okay. So there are many things, obviously to have an association, that means that there are needs that either were not being met or that there's a large population of folks who need these needs to be met.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
What's the current status when we talk about students with disability? What is the status of how these needs are being met in Kenya today?
Thank you. Very most important thing for a student, to be particular students with disability, is representation. So there was lack of representation because there was no structure in which the representation is being met, or their concerns are being met. So the status quo as at now is on trial, is on a third class. We are moving. That's what I will say. Because we are trying to reach the 5-star. We're still on third class, meaning there's still a lot to be done. Meaning, as much as we are having a structure of representation, there's still some hiccups. There's still some.
What would an ideal structure look like?
My ideal structure will look like this. As at now, we still have what we call special schools.
Yes.
Meaning, we are still on the integration stage. We're still not at the inclusive stage. So inclusive stage, this is where everyone is comfortable in whatever environment, such that we do not only take our students with disability in the so-called special school, we make this other regular school to be inclusive, to be accessible. So that is what will make a structured representation look like. Now, because otherwise a school which is regular, for example, let's say Nairobi Primary or let's say Nairobi High, that any other student, be it a student who is using wheelchair or crutches, will comfortably be admitted and has his or her learning prowess well continued without hiccups. So that is what I will define as a structure where all institutions, all public, private institutions are accessible, are inclusive, such that we do not have.
How many special schools are there in Kenya?
Special schools, they are high schools, there are 8 as per the regions. Yes.
Every
region has one.
Has one. Okay.
Primary, Sadabo. Some regions has 3. Although they are coming, I heard there's a one that is being set up in Rift Valley. I'm still not sure whether it has been set, but in Nyanza region alone, no primary. There's an issue in primary. They are much divided. There's deaf school, there's blind, and now there's for handicapped, physically handicapped, and there's for mentally. So primary, there are a bit so many. There are roughly 20. Last time we checked.
Around the country?
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
Now, do you have a census during the population of people with disabilities, and do we know the categorization and the numbers of these disabilities?
That is now the problem, City. That with the structure I'm trying to form, one thing that has been my agenda is data. Data for all the students with disability. As at now, there is no accurate data.
The Ministry of Education doesn't have this data.
It has it, but not in a very structured form. It has it in what we call unwritten form. Unwritten form is where it is not in one document.
But it exists.
It exists.
Let me ask, because when you talk about schools for children in this country with disabilities, or the people who don't like living with disability, but who have disabilities, are we then saying that every child who is of school-going age and who has a disability is in school? The answer, I think, is no.
No.
Okay, now, if we don't know the numbers of young children who are of school-going age with disabilities who exist, then it becomes very, very difficult to understand, for instance, what it is that, even as you plan, what would actually be needed. what it is that would be required for children whose disability is perhaps their sight, those whose disability is hearing, those who have some physical disability, whatever the range of disabilities, it will be difficult to plan. Now, let me ask the other question. Are we saying, therefore, that when you've talked to the Ministry of Education, because I'm assuming you have,
Yes.
do they have a blueprint or a program that they have in place to cater for the needs of these young children of school-going age with disabilities?
They do have a blueprint, City, but when I checked at the blueprint, I had a problem with it. There's what we call consistency. Consistency, it brings the doctrine of being current. So being current means that you must be in touch with what is ongoing as at now.
Yes.
Their blueprint was formed way back, even before the formation of 2010 Constitution. When we were having the Disability Act being put into place, that's when the blueprint was formed. And that was in 2005. And meaning the people who formed the blueprint, they're the people who have been the most existing. And they are the people who are anticipated to implement that blueprint. So that beats the logic of concurrence and consistency with the current issues. So that blueprint lacks that doctrine or that notion. So that's why I sat down as a person who has now have information, and because I'm privileged to be an institution and I'm privileged to be taking law, so then I understand the dynamics of life, social, political, and cultural. So then I didn't want to fatten a bull on the market day. So I wanted to first deal with the students at the higher learning institution and come up with a structure that is current with the current matters. So then as we move, then I will disseminate to primary and nursery schools.
Okay. Let me ask you something perhaps which is more pertinent. How many members do you have? Because you are a student leader.
Yes.
Within, now this student leadership, does it only cover universities? Does it cover tertiary?
Higher learnings.
Higher learnings.
Yes, so that is tertiary.
How many members do you have?
As at now, the members whom have been able, with the little resources I have, are 4,581.
Now, are your members all people living with disabilities, or people can actually be members without necessarily having disabilities?
They are members with disability, because that is what the representation has.
They are members. There are 4,000.
Yes. In
those who are registered and those who are known, whom you have knowledge of.
Who I have knowledge of. And remember, I'm also proposing a bill in Parliament and to the departmental committee that deals with disability issues to allow me to come up with more accurate data with good resources, because it requires me to move across the country. And McHugh have been operating on a zero budget. Well, moving from Kisii, Turkana, Kajiado, Siaya, and whatever places. So then, the budget, the proposal I'm proposing to the Parliament contain that request. That now they mandate my association to be updating the nation with accurate data, which more look like a consensus, such that when there's a bottom-up economy that seeks to support, then it's supported from a point of knowledge and a point of information.
You know, I'm a bit conflicted here, and I'll tell you why I'm conflicted. Because let me start with the Ministry of Education, given the role of the Ministry of Education and what it's supposed to do. I'm talking of the Ministry of Education. Then I'm talking about Kenya Bureau of Statistics. We have institutions in this country whose job is precisely what you're suggesting.
Yes, sir.
That's what they are supposed to do. And when you are looking for numbers, Kenya Bureau of Statistics ought to be able to give you these numbers.
So
They have the numbers, don't they?
I do tend to say, but see, issues with inclusive or inclusion are more technical. This is the issue. Matters to do with disability is a matter that people tend to take with a sheer seriousness, a sheer careness, sheer responsibilityness. And so I didn't want to bother many people. I wanted to take this mandate because I belong to that club. I belong to that society. I know what it feels. Not that we've not tried to liaise with those institutions you're mentioning. We've tried to liaise, but now it is taking more time overdue. And I do say, when we delay things that should be done in a very faster way, and I know I am capable, then I will not bother look for institutions which will still require a lot of bureaucracies unnecessarily.
What exactly are we talking about that we need? Because this is it. We're not talking about some grey, maybe policy. No. We're talking about actual things that are needed to be put in. Whether we're talking about institutions then that then become compliant. Whether we're talking about needs in school, whether we're talking about braille, whether we're talking about hearing aids, whether we're talking about ramps in buildings, whether we're talking about universities that have then become compliant around the country. What are we talking about? And have we gotten to the place whereby institutions are becoming more aware of the need to be compliant for people with disability?
One, there's an issue with awareness. Some institutions are not well informed, as we may presume, on matters inclusion. And for your information, there are very few institutions who have what we call disability liaison office.
What does that mean?
Disability liaison office, this is an office that caters for any matter that requires disability attention, that is of disability. Now, for example, in the University of Nairobi, any issue that arises that is of disability and requires a special attention as far as disability is concerned, there's an office set called Disability Liaison Office. And it's a requirement that each and every institution, learning institution, should have it. Because this is a direct office that links, that is a connection between students or staff with disability with administration.
Okay. Let me talk about funding, which you mentioned. We've had student leaders here. We had the leader who, well, he is like the group leader.
Kusa.
Yes, for students.
Anthony Manyara.
Yes, that's why I'm calling him group leader. Now, from what we understood, students who are at the university are mandated to pay subscriptions to the union, are they not? They're mandated. It's not that you're given an option, you have to pay.
Yes.
Why is it that then some of that money, because you're students and I'm sure you also pay, why is it that some of that money is not diverted to the functions of this particular unit that you actually have? Because it is a unit that represents a special group.
As I was saying, there's lack of awareness, meaning there's lack of the rate at which information disseminates is different. So even the administration in some institutions are not aware on how to deal with these issues. So they even do not have a structured form in which to budget for special needs issues.
There is, what was this that you mentioned you have at the university? What is this unit that deals?
Liaison office.
Yes.
Liaison office.
Okay, what does it do?
It ensures that any issues that are directed to them on disability are well addressed.
Okay, now this is one of them. Has it ever been taken to them to address?
It has been taken to them to address, but unfortunately, these officers are not always the final decision making. Yeah, so they are as I told you, they only liars. And as at now, the only institutions that has disability liaison office is the University of Nairobi,
Yes.
Kenyatta University, Mount Kenya University, Maseno University, and TUM, Mombasa, for public institutions. The rest are not aware about it. The rest are in the growing stage. When I was talking to the representative at Kisii University, they still want to form it. Yeah? Yet there are very pertinent issues that require special attention and require special attention in a structured way. So, meaning there is still a long way to go. First, that we need to first create these offices in the institutions that doesn't have them.
Yeah.
So then we'll be able to move holistically.
Okay.
You get?
Yeah.
And to the issue that City has raised on funding, now institutions are trying, as at now, to give special budget to issues pertaining disability. For example, my University of Nairobi is trying, and they do give some budget, and in that budget they cater for transport costs, because you get to understand that there are students who have serious mobility issues and they are not able to move from one place to another easily. So that goes to that department. And again, assistive devices. For example, for the visual impaired, they need to have special assistive devices and across other disciplines of disability. So this is basically where our budget has been able to satisfy. And I'm also trying to liaise with other institutions to ensure that they also cater for that. Kenyatta University is doing so well in that department. They also have good facilities, transport facilities, good assistive devices for all the disciplines for disability. So you get to understand that it's only universities around Nairobi region that are well up to date in this, as far as that is concerned. So that's why I was coming up with this kind of caucus, to first pass information and create awareness, to have that data and liaise with, make a liaison between the government and the students, public institution and the students who graduates, who are still in continuity and who are yet to join these institutions.
Why do you want to be the president?
Okay, I've been able to achieve beyond what I'm mandated to do as a disability representative. And then it dawns to me, then I can represent people at a large scale. I can represent people holistically and satisfy their needs as required. Briefly, when I was elected in 2022, 21st, I started operating actively August of the same year. And what I did, I first partnered with 10 organizations that deals with disability issues. And through this partnership, I was looking for what we call a long-term partnership. And long-term, meaning I was looking at the employment for students with disability who graduate from the University of Nairobi across the campuses. This has been able to be achieved without a fail. Then again, through that, we came up with a policy that mandates the school again to ensure that any students with disability who graduates is granted a job market. So meaning the transition to job market becomes a policy of the university. And that is also in our what we call strategic plan that ends in 2028. On my own, with the partners I was bringing on board, for example, the International Commission of Jurists Kenya, ICJ, when I walked into that office one good day, I introduced myself and I made my point. They called me for a general meeting, which again I made my point so exemplary and vehemently. So when and when I went for the third time, I made a request that I have students with disability at law school, because Commission of Jurists is more of a law organization. I made a request and they listened to my request. Today, 2 of students with disability who graduated on 15th December last year, 2023, have been confirmed on 1 year full internship.
And at ICJ.
At ICJ. So proud am I. And proud is the university.
What does the president of UNSA do?
The president of UNSA, as the president of the country, ensures that the needs of their constituents, which are the university students of Nairobi, are well catered for. That I listen and I make good decisions, and I alliance with the administration, alliance with the national government, alliance with the county government to ensure that their stay in campus do not become regrettable. As simple as such.
What is that? What are the needs of the students?
The needs of students are simple. One is the core issue that brought them to the university, which is academics. So then I have to ensure that the services they're getting are of quality as their marks when they entered the university. And it's proportionate to the fees that they pay. 2 is that they get extremely exposed to the outside world, such that when they come out of the university, they come with 2 degrees. 1, they are bachelors. 2, bachelors in life.
In life.
So how do you expose them to the real world?
Myself, I'm well exposed by so becoming their leader, by just setting a good example. That is enough for them.
What is exposure to real world?
Exposure to real world is to know what your purpose is in life, and to know that you can make possibilities where there is no possibility. You can create a way where there is no way. That you can know as many people when you become a reasonable person, when you become an orderly person, when you become well-civilized person.
Most times we react to things that we are not comfortable with, right? And we have to be honest. And sometimes it hurts to hear it, but you say somebody with disability is different. It's not what you consider to be normal, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So my reaction to you initially, without understanding these things, would not necessarily be one of misunderstanding for anything else beyond fear, uncomfortability, because I don't know how to handle you. And most times you'll find that we then don't do the things that are necessary to do to have an all-inclusive society, not for anything else, but because of fear and uncomfortability. Am I doing the right thing? What do I need to do here? Now, to counter that sometimes is understanding. So help me understand how much easier or how much better life would be for somebody with disability if everything they needed at every institution they were at was provided. How does life become easier?
They will actually forget that they have disability. That is how life will be easy. Yes. Because when someone goes to a tuition block and is on a wheelchair and meets a huge stairs up to 18th floor, then they will be reminded that they are on wheelchair.
Yeah.
But now, when they are
There's a lift.
all over, they will not even realize that they are on wheelchair because the accessibility is so immense, is so developed, and with that, life will be as enjoyable as any other person.
For a long time,
Yes.
we have seen leadership of university organizations being tied to politics,
Yes.
national politics or local politics, where you see actually politicians would fund campaigns of student leader candidates. So they have some level of influence. You can call on these students at any time to use them for your own political means and gains. Does this happen at UN? Still.
You mentioned still. So meaning there's a time which that was happening to your
Yes.
information.
Yes.
All right. And a question before I answer that. These people who are being funded, are they doing well in life? In terms of their political ambitions, in terms of their political life?
Which ones? The
your
students that were
information.
funded
Yeah. Because
to rise.
It's like you have an information of particulars.
Well, I don't know what becomes of them later. Some of them, maybe they'll win the political seats at the university student union.
And later on.
Then they move on again and join politics as well. Or they don't. They go into careers. Either way, there was some influence, some political influence that helped them, to propel them to become leaders. You talked about some of them. Moses Kuria, cabinet secretary,
Yes.
was a treasurer,
Yes.
I think,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
At Sonu in his days.
Absolutely.
He talks about the kind of interactions that he was having with politicians,
Yes.
and how the politicians would help them,
Yes.
even in their own organization of campaigns.
So I will call that like those who are his mentors. And I will answer that those mentors still exist. And if someone comes to mentor me, I will really accept.
Mentoring you with cash?
Mentorship is holistic. We live in an economy that requires cash. And if someone decides to facilitate my transport, that is a mentor to me. I will accept.
You see what happens, Dennis, is national politics has now become cash-based. Okay? So that's what we say. It's very expensive to run a campaign as an MCA.
Yes.
We talk about tens of millions for you to run an MCA campaign. Tens of millions for you to run a MP, governor, woman rep
35
campaign.
million senator kind of thing. Yeah.
Word is that it's also become a millions kind of thing to run a
A campaign in the
campaign
university.
In the university,
in
yes.
UNSA.
Yes.
Is it true?
Yes, it requires, because it's like any other political seat. For example, university has more than 70,000 students. So it's like a constituency. Now, for example, if I become the president, as good as an MP for any constituency. And for me to win, I have to put my shoes in the shoes of an MP vying for member of parliament seat.
Okay. And what would you do in those shoes? What we hear about politics is cash handouts and all those things.
Absolutely, I will need cash.
Handouts?
Handouts, what do you mean by handouts? I will need cash to facilitate.
Handout is kila mtu apata lunch. Mia mbili.
They will require, once you are kiongozi, comrades must eat.
Why?
Comrades, because they see life. We live in a world whereby
We're cash money
no.
oriented.
I have not said that.
I'm helping you. Okay.
We live in a world whereby good leaders make people eat.
Haya.
Good leaders feed people.
Yeah.
You didn't say few people. To sustain your leadership, or for what reasons?
Politics is is a good field that requires understanding, and one understanding is that you need people. People is our security. So the moment you stop investing in your security, you become insecure. Insecure in terms of you will lack information, you will lack your objective, and in the long term you will not achieve. Yeah.
Is it that the leadership are the ones who want to ensure that their people eat, or is it that their people demand that they must eat?
As a leader, you did not come out of vacuum. You are once in the common people. Then you knew that these common people lack food, for example, food security. So then it's your mandate as a good leader, which I believe I am, to ensure that these people's needs are well catered for. It is my mandate. Whether with their demand or not, it is my mandate, my primary mandate. Yes.
At some place like the university, okay, you have outlined clearly the needs of the students you've represented so far, the students living with disabilities. Now, I'm looking at a university. I would have assumed that when somebody gets to the university, the things that they need to learn are provided for. So, if my theory is right, I suspect it is wrong. Then what do they need the leaders for? What exactly are you helping them get or achieve which they don't already have? Because I thought the university was supposed to provide these things. Do they have enough teachers? Is there water? Is there accommodation? I mean, what do leaders provide for the students? Beyond calling rallies and calling everybody comrade.
I understand you. Maybe you are taking your master's or your PhD, and there are class reps in those your classes, which basically links you with the lecturers. They disseminate information. That is leadership.
Somebody who talks on your behalf.
That is leadership.
Representation.
Because the vice chancellor cannot be addressing 70,000 students every day, every hour, every minute by himself. And he needs people to help him disseminate that information, and it reaches those people vehemently, as I would say, or autonomously, as I would say. And to answer your question further, you mentioned water, that there is water. At times, there is water shortage. And, for example, there's water shortage, and the vice chancellor or the person in charge is not aware. So it is upon the leader to inform that in block such and such, there is shortage of water. You get a point? Now, for example, if the DVC is on an official trip to Ghana, attending a summit, and there's an issue with academic prowess, then there's someone who needs to inform him, and because he's not on the ground. So leaders are on the ground, as simple as I will.
Or responding to issues.
Yes, responding to issues.
What's your style of leadership? Is your leadership style, because we've seen several UN student leaders who are abrasive. You know, they want to talk constantly. It's comrade power. Comrades, let's do this. Let's agitate. Or is yours where you will then end up being accused of sleeping with the management?
Okay.
By constantly, you're constantly in the office of the VC, in the DVC's office, and you're coming to explain the administration to the people and telling them, yes, we don't have water, but msijali, maji itakuja. What's your style?
My style of leadership is to think beyond everyone and caters for the needs in a very unique way. Now, for example, when I was elected as the disability rep, I went ahead and secured a job by my own means. That is not under my mandate as required. So my style of leadership is to go beyond the limit. And to go beyond the limit to the extent that the administration will be the one requesting to sleep with me. Not me.
They'll be seeking you out.
Yes. because
There'll be something about this guy that we need to tap into and see
Absolutely.
how he can help.
yes, because
Okay.
this person will be an asset.
Administration sleeping with you basically implies that the administration is then manipulating you.
And that one is
that's
in the
what
other's pocket.
That's what you
However
meant.
you choose to look at it.
My style of leadership is a way that it cannot be manipulated, because you will not find an open door for manipulation. You will only find an open door for partnership and cooperation. So that's what I meant by sleeping.
Do you think leaders of university student leaders should be very active in national political discourse? For example, currently,
Yes.
there's a whole issue of the cost of living. There's the issue of rising taxes. There's all those things. Should student leaders involve themselves in this as part of maybe what you called getting your undergrad in real life?
I will say yes, because those are issues which by extension affects the students. Now, like what you mentioned, if there's an issue with the living, with the
Cost of
economy
living.
and all that, students are the people. Yeah, they form the population, the larger population of the people. So then any issue that affects the larger population affects the students directly. So then it is a mandate of a student leader who is of my caliber to address those issues without failure, and to address them categorically, and to address them in particular with information bearing. Yeah. So again, the structure we formed, just briefly, we are having an objective to do few things before the time elapses, which is we are behind schedule.
The campaigns.
And the one that for the Kenya Students with Disability Association,
Yes.
we requested to also be mandated as a structure to disseminate as information on job vacancies. We partner with the National Commission to disseminate us with the information so that we reach the people. Because, for example, we know that in our association we have this particular number of students who have graduated of engineering. So when there's a vacancy for engineering students, we be particular. So with that, it will help our students not to lagging behind when applying for job applications, because there's been an issue that the students with disability do not apply.
So you want affirmative action
Absolutely.
in job placements?
Yes, affirmative action in job placement. And as CT was saying on the Disability Act, I told him is inconsistent to some extent, not everything, particularly on the clause of job and employment. It states that there should be 5% inclusion. There should be 5% in job intake. And every organization must have 5% of their employees. I mean, should. Should. It is a should. It is not absolute that it must.
Sure.
That should have 5% of their employees as people with disability.
Yes.
So that clause was again promulgated in the Constitution 2010, and in that clause, Article 54, Clause 2, it also says the same, but it does not it does not further explains. Now, what if there is a failure of doing so? Because organizations also do report to the National Commission on their disability issues. Compliances. So there's that lacuna that there's no consequences for failing
To do this, yeah.
And again, on what we call on on disability registration card, you find that there's been a real issue when you go for assessment. You need to pay some amount. For example, I'm physically disabled, which you can easily see. So we are asking our question in that proposal, that what is the need for assessment? What do you need to assess in me? What do you need to assess that you know that I'm disabled? Yet it is so visible. So there's those lacunas that we are trying to address in that proposal. And our wish that the government should take this proposal as serious as possible, that they should see us as the cause for change.
Haya Dennis is the chair of the UN Students with Disability, wants to be the next president of the University of Nairobi Students Association. Thank you for tuning in to Kenya's biggest conversation.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.